Welcome everyone to another episode of Lunchtime with Luke, or as some of you guys have called it, Smith Wars. I like that one. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about the Bugman menace. The Bugman. A lot of people see me using the term Bugman, or people who subscribe to my channel using the term Bugman, and they don't really know what this means. Because the Bugman, I mean, you hear a bunch of meme terms to just sort of make fun of people nowadays, call people NPCs or something like that. Bugman is a much more biting critique if you really understand what it means. And I think if you really target your life towards being not a Bugman, you'll be doing yourself a favor. So what is a Bugman, okay? A Bugman is like a Redditor. A Bugman is, well, let's put it this way. I think the way the term was originally used is really, the idea is, okay, so you're born, and you're born with a tradition, you're born with a family, they sort of have a folklore attached to them, they have a religion, they have habits, they have, generations and generations of people have fallen in place to generate you. And now what a Bugman does is a Bugman doesn't think of himself as being a part of a tradition. Instead, a Bugman thinks of everything that he was born with as being bad, and he wants to get rid of it. He wants to deconstruct it. He wants to remove it from his life. He thinks it's irrational. And basically what a Bugman does is, it's not just a rebelling against your parents kind of thing. It's way deeper than that. It's a mindset where you deconstruct everything about any kind of either traditional society, but more than that, your life. And you abandon everything. You abandon all of that stuff and become a totally rootless person. And what does your culture become? Okay. Now, let that question, saturate in your brain or something like that. What does someone become if they abandon their family traditions? Well, what happens nowadays, a bunch of people do this stuff that's really lame, okay? For example, people identify with increasingly stupid things. So people identify with the music they listened to in high school. That's really lame. People identify with diets that they do. People identify with ideologies. You read the Wikipedia article for anarcho-syndicalism. You really like it. I'm an anarcho-syndicalist. That's now an aspect of my personality. That's my identity. When I introduce myself to other Bugmen, I will introduce myself as that. Or religion. Remember all those kids in high school who read the Wikipedia article for Buddhism and now they're Buddhists? Because how Bugmen think about things like this, like religion. Bugmen think of that as, they think of it autistically. They're high, well, I would call them high-functioning autists, but they're really low-functioning because they don't really get the whole point of life. To them, religion, for example, religion is a collection of factual beliefs that you believe in or not believe in. And I have autism, and I can't understand anything else besides that. Like, I don't understand why people go to church and do all this social stuff, and it doesn't make sense to the Bugman, because they are in this mode of deconstructing all that. So, again, their identity in lieu of that comes from things like dieting, music, your own personally chosen religion that you really have no folkish connection to. You can convert to a religion of some other country in some other place that you know nothing about. You might not even know anyone who practices this religion. Or, even further, people identify with sexual fetishes, okay? That's a new thing nowadays. So people will wear that. People, the archetypical Tumblr user is someone who, in their bio, they're bug people, so they don't have, they don't have any traditions, they don't have any family line they're continuing. Instead, they're continuing this bug line of, totally deracinated identity. I have chosen to be a furry. I have chosen to be an anarcho-syndicalist. So that is Bugman thinking. Now, of course, it's not always this extreme. I'm sort of taking it a little further. The fact is, all of us, even me, of course, have Bugman aspects about us, and that's part of the curse of modernity. All right, we have to deal with that. There are parts of our life that we have abandoned because we think it's irrational. And when I say we think it's irrational, rational is often what Bugmen think that they're the kind of line of thought they think they're following. In that when it comes to something traditional, they will find any kind of logical machinations they possibly can to destroy it. Now, of course, when it comes to something like anime or video games or whatever people are identifying with, they're not going to put the same kind of logical deconstruction to that because, well, it's just not going to work out. So anyway, this kind of person, so the Bugman, when it comes to their opinions or their worldview, they don't think of themselves. They don't think of themselves as an aspect, one extra stone in a long line of people. Now, that's not to say that if you think of yourself this way, you have no individuality. But Bugmen have a pseudo-individuality. Their I guess identity comes from things that don't matter, rather than who they actually are. In fact, they spend most of their time destroying who they actually are, which is really lame. And their mindset is they don't understand, I guess, the limitations of their own autism. Okay, if you have this rational mindset where you're trying to deconstruct all the, live a rational life, like, I'll just eat 2,000 calories a day, exactly what the FDA recommends or something like that, and that's a rational life. That's what people think about this. Now, the problem with a rational Bugman life is that it's based on, really it's constrained by the layers of our ignorance, so to speak. That is, our knowledge is never complete when we decide on something that's rational. In fact, if you want a more robust strategy, you rely on your traditions, because those have worked for the longest time. So when you're out in the real life, take something like what I do in my wage cucking job, or sort of part-time thing. I do carpentry and stuff like that. Now, you could rationally look up how to be a carpenter. You could even watch YouTube videos, about people doing it. But that's not the same thing as actually getting in there and understanding what's going on. And that's sort of the difference. Even if your reason is constrained by what is right in front of your face, whereas long-term traditions, which are honed by, I guess, by the survivability, so to speak, they're not the same thing. Even if you don't understand why they make sense, sometimes they do. Now, anyway, you can say, oh, you're just blah, blah, blah. You post your Reddit comments in the, comments section. I'm not going to read them anyway. But when it comes down to it, compare the Bugmen in your life, where they are at 30, with the non-Bugmen in your life, where they are at 30. Because when you're 16 or something, I'm sure many of you kids are still 16, it seems really cool to be a Bugman atheist. It seems really cool to throw everything away. It seems really cool to, be an anarcho-syndicalist and all this stuff. But as you go on, there's a huge difference between Bugmen and non-Bugmen. And Bugmen cannot survive without a hive. That's the fact of the matter. They don't exist as individual people. And yeah, they're really just lame. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I'll see you on the next episode of Smith Wars.